What's going on, everyone? So I started just on time today, so I'm going to wait a little while, and then we'll rock and roll. I got my notes here so I don't forget anything. We'll kind of go from there. So it's Saturday, so I got myself like a little treat, just having like a Health Aid kombucha. There's a little bit of sugar in it, but it is Saturday again, and it totally fits into all my numbers, so it all works out. Marcus, what's going on? We're going to start in a little bit. We're just going to wait for a few people to jump in. And since it's the winter time, I know a lot of people, Gary, good to see you. I know a lot of people try to go into like a muscle gain, bulking phase, possibly at this time of the year. So I'm going to cover like how to do that so you don't gain too much body fat, which most people end up doing. They overdo it, they gain too much body fat, and then they kind of look not the way they like to look, and then they cut down again. But during the process of cutting down, they lose pretty much all the muscle they gained during their bulk, and they kind of repeat this cycle on and off all the time, and their body kind of looks the same year after year. So we're going to cover like the ins and outs of how to do how I found a good way to do a proper bulk. It takes a little bit of patience, but at least you won't become too overweight in the process, and then your end product will look really good too. And you can do it in a healthy and balanced way. So, all right, let me put this guy down here, this out of the way a little bit. Okay, cool. So let me look over my notes here. Okay, so the first question in and of itself is, should I bulk? Should I be cutting weight? Should I be losing weight? That's the big thing, right? Because you don't want to go into a bulk when you're already like a bit too overweight, meaning like your body fat percentage is already a little bit too high. Like I mentioned on a live, if you want to be exact and know your exact body fat percentage, since Christmas is coming up, why not? You can get a DEXA scan. It's spelled DEXA. You can go DEXA scan. You can Google it or do an internet search with whichever search engine you like. And I'm sure you'll find a location near you, especially if you're in kind of like a major city. For sure, they're going to have many locations where we can get this done. And basically, you just lay on a table and they kind of do a scan, and it takes like just a few minutes, and you don't even have to get undressed. You do have to probably take your shirt off, but I mean, you can leave your shorts on and stuff of that sort. And the scan will give you like a pretty exact body fat percentage number. And then that way you can be super precise, right? And I would say if you are 15% or above, even 15% is kind of like a gray area. You should not go into a bulk. So if your body fat percentage is 15%, you should definitely not be focusing on a bulk. You should be focusing on getting your body fat percentage down roughly to about 10 to 12%ish. It once again depends on so many variables, and it's really tough to give absolute advice without knowing each one of you individually and exactly what you're looking for, right? But from my vantage point, I would say like if you're at 15% or above, you should be focusing more on leaning out and getting a better muscle to fat ratio versus a bulk, right? And if you're at 20% and above, for sure, you should not be focusing on bulking. You should be focusing on getting your body fat percentage down to like about 10 or 12% ideally. So if you're at 20%, for sure, don't focus on bulking. If you're at 15%, maybe. It just depends on how your body's looking and how taller you are and how that body fat is distributed and stuff of that sort. But I would say even if you're at 15% body fat, you should not be focusing on a bulk. You should be cutting down a little bit, at least until 12% or probably 10%, and then kind of focus on a quote unquote bulk. And I'll define exactly what I mean by that a little bit later in the call. Another thing, if you don't want to, I think a DEXA scan is around like $100 or so. If you don't want to spend that money or make an appointment, that's totally okay too. You can do a mirror test. This is what I rely on pretty much most always. I do have those cheap little calipers as well. That's another option. You can buy those for like $10 on Amazon, and you can just do a 3-site test: a chest, Abdomen and thigh, it's good enough. And you can, with at least the calipers, take it a lot more consistently too. And just watch a YouTube tutorial on how to do that. It's very simple overall. And that could also tell you, where you're at. So again, if you're at 15% body fat or above, you should definitely not be focused on bulking. You should be focused on kind of cutting a little bit of body fat down, and establishing a better muscle to fat ratio in your physique before you go into a bulk, right? And think about it this way. The average American male is around like 25-ish%, which is obese, right? 20% is overweight, 25% is obese, et cetera, et cetera. But another thing you can do outside of calipers is just kind of look at yourself in the mirror. This is a bit more subjective, but when you're trying to build a good looking physique anyway, it's more on the subjective side either way. Just look in the mirror and just ask yourself, am I as lean as I would like to see myself, or do I have a little bit too much body fat? Like a lot of males don't like how the body fat around their lower chest looks, or their lower abdomen, or maybe inside of their thighs oftentimes, or maybe their butt is a little bit too fat and they kind of start seeing those dimples. Then probably if you don't like that already, you don't want to initiate a bulk, because that's just going to make that more prominent and more visual, and that might make you more self-conscious of that, okay? Excuse me. So basically your options are, so first and foremost, to determine like, do I need to be bulking or do I need to be cutting? You got to know your body fat percentage. And the ways to know that is you can get a DEXA scan. You can do a mirror test like I described. You can buy a cheap caliper on Amazon, and stuff of that sort. Or I did mention DEXA scan. I thought I said 4, but anyways, those are more than enough. And again, I would probably personally, if it were me, if I was 15% or above, I would not start a bulk. I would focus on cutting down. Okay, so Daryl asks, I am a little too critical of myself in that way, but best results are when I eat well. Yeah, so Daryl, so maybe sometimes having an internal critic, right, that's where the subjective can kind of get in the way a little bit, especially if you have too harsh of an internal critic. So maybe you would need to do like a mirror test and get something like a DEXA scan done. So you have some kind of like objective reality to base your decision on from a couple different vantage points, instead of just the vantage point of maybe the internal critic, which might not be the most accurate oftentimes, especially if the internal critic is a little bit too over the top, not realistic with their demands, which many people have for sure. And that's something to consider as well in your evaluation. Sometimes people have like this fantasy self they're comparing themselves to as well, and that could kind of give them a distorted perception of what they need to focus on currently. But guys, first step in determining a bulk, especially during the winter, is what's my current body fat percentage? And basically, if it's 15% or above, I would recommend not doing a bulk, because you'd want to, again, just focus on establishing a better body composition. And what I mean by that is a better muscle to fat ratio, which will inevitably make your physique look better as well, and overall probably improve some of your biological markers also, if that's a concern. I draw men all the time and I have issues with body image. Yeah, so that means, Daryl, maybe one thing you would want to try is a couple of different vantage points. Do the mirror test, maybe take some pictures of your physique from the front, side, and back as well, because it helps to look at it from a third person perspective also, and get a DEXA scan done, and then kind of determine where you want to go. But generally speaking, guys, if you're at 15% or above, I would personally not, like if you guys were a client, I would suggest that you do like a cut first to get down to 10 or 12%, and then initiate a more proper and well-balanced bulk, which we'll talk about here, actually. Exactly what I did for that picture I posted just yesterday. Okay, so number one, determine body fat percentage. And goals, obviously. Your goals are going to be huge, right? Everyone is different, and I can't tell you what to do because I just don't know you and I don't know your goals. So you got to really determine like what you want. And some things that help some people is just finding a picture of a physique that's kind of similar to your genetics, but that you would like to have, for example. You got to be careful online these days, right? Because most fitness influencers are heavily drugged up. So you can't be comparing yourself to them because their whole entire image is basically sustained through illegal drug use and also using quite high quantities, dangerous quantities of those drug use to sustain that kind of looking physique too. But there are many naturals out there too. So definitely find a honest natural physique that you aspire to look like in your age category and kind of strive for that. I've been steroid and hormone free my whole entire life. Okay, I really don't even honestly even use that many almost any supplements. Sometimes if I do take supplements, it's just for the novelty of it. I saw the label and it was kind of cool, and it was some kind of mushroom extract. I'm like, oh, what the heck, sure. And I'll kind of describe what kind of supplements I do take later on in the call as well. And again, you guys, I'm here for you. So if you have any questions, just let me know. It doesn't mean I'll have the answer to it, but I'll try my best to answer it for sure. Okay. So after we determined our goals and our body fat percentage, the next thing I want to cover is like, what does bulking even mean? So a lot of times when people hear bulking, they just presume like eating a gargantuous amount of food, and probably eating a gargantuous amount of food of the wrong type of food as well. So like pizza, ice cream, just going out to fast food very often. And you do see, unfortunately, a lot of fitness influencers doing this. But I guarantee you the ones promoting this are also heavy into drug use as well. Just because they have a good physique and also maybe good skin complexion and stuff like that doesn't mean they're healthy at all. In fact, they probably are unhealthy, as you can kind of see a lot of these young fitness influencers dying at very young age. There's a very popular one that died just a little while ago. He's like 30 years old. He was very popular. And again, too much drug use, and it's tough to really take advice from people like that. So definitely find someone like natural and that's not addicted to various drugs and stuff of that sort. So what does bulking even mean? When I say bulking, I definitely don't mean eating anything you want. So what I did for my last bulk is, as you guys know, I just rarely eat out. And if you guys are into having great looking skin, saving quite a bit of money. I mean, the average American does spend a couple grand a year just on eating out. And usually the food you find at the restaurant, it's going to be at the restaurant or fast food place. It's going to be about a 300% markup from how much it would cost for you to make that equivalent food group at home. So it'll save you money. It'll definitely make it way easier for you to track your macros if you're into doing that. I kind of do that for the most part. And you'll just be healthier too, especially if you're buying more like legitimate, organically sourced food at home and stuff of that sort, which is ironically still even way cheaper than going out, because all you're going to get when you go out is just a bunch of industrial factory farm junk that's seasoned very well. So it might taste good, but it's actually fairly bad for you. And I can tell you guys from personal experience, coaching clients for 17 years now, I've had so many clients come in with various digestive issues, and just by getting them to stop eating out as often or stop eating out completely, 9 out of 10 times their digestive issues go away, especially if alcohol was involved in that equation. And fairly quickly too, within a month to 3 months, all of their digestive issues that they've had for who knows how long, many years, are all of a sudden go away, just to tell you, because they put so much preservatives and you don't know what kind of cooking oils they use in there and what else they're putting in there and stuff of that sort. So you just have like a lot more control over your diet, especially if you have a sensitive digestive issue. Then for sure you have to be extra sharp with what you choose to eat, right? So bulk requires, in order to do a proper bulk, presuming that is what you want to do, you don't need a steep caloric surplus. You do need to eat more than you burn. That's key, right? At the end of the day, if you look at the human body, at least from one vantage point, as basic accounting, it would help simplify the journey for you. So when you're trying to lose weight, you need to eat a little bit less, or you need to burn a little bit more than you eat, right? And when you're trying to gain weight, when you're trying to do a bulk gain muscle, you have to eat a little bit more than you lose. And I found for myself personally, just to have a 500 calorie surplus every single day, 7 days a week, to be all that you need to consistently gain about 1 to 2 pounds a month. And I would try to strive to gain about, let's say, 2 pounds a month. And that's a half a pound a week. So one thing you could do as well is just track your weight daily. This is important, I would say, for a couple of reasons, because one, it gives you objective feedback on how your decisions in life impact your weight and thus impact your health and also your body composition, right? And then two, it gives you good data on how to properly customize your nutrition program, because at the end of the day, everyone is going to be different. Even if you're very science-based and you go to pubmed.gov and consume the literature, you'll see in any study there are hyper responders, under responders, and then kind of a bunch of people in the middle. And who knows, you might be the hyper responder, that most people didn't get results off this study, but there are 3 or 4 people that did out of the 200 people, but you could be those 3 or 4 people. So that might still work for you, although generally speaking, whatever that study was measuring did not work overall. How do you bulk without getting a stomach? I see many people bulk, but looking pregnant. Yeah, that's exactly what we're covering here, Romeo. So good to see you. I don't know exactly where you are. Every time I see your profile, you're like in a different country. I'm pretty sure pretty soon with the way you're going, I'm going to turn on the Facebook tomorrow and be like, oh, he's in Mars now, or Jupiter or something like that. So, but it's cool. It's cool to see you traveling and enjoying life and stuff of that sort, of course. So you do need a surplus, but once again, not huge, just 500 calories. That's it, so you got to determine your base metabolism. So mine, a 500 calorie surplus is around 4,000 calories a day, where a maintenance is around like 3,200 calories a day or 3,500 calories a day, something of that sort. So everyone is different. And typically if you have a lot of muscle already, you're going to require a lot more calories just to sustain. And thus you're going to require a lot more calories to be able to gain as well. And this is one of the bigger mistakes people make, is they just don't eat enough, consistently enough. Maybe they do on certain days, but then then they undereat on other days. And if you look at the weekly average, let's say I require 4,000 a day, right? To consistently gain, let's just say predictably 2 pounds a month, 4,000 calories a day. But let's say like the typical person would be like, they would eat 4,000 calories on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but then some kind of meeting would come up on Thursday and they would undereat. They would only eat like 2,000 calories. Then some type of another meeting will come up on Friday, some crazy deadline, and all of a sudden they eat 1,000 calories out of the 4,000 required. So now they're in the negative 4,000. And then on the weekend, they go out with friends and miss a meal or two. And if you add up the total calories for that 7 days, like basically take the amount of calories you've eaten every single day and divide it by 7, you will see your weekly average caloric intake is not 4,000. It's probably 3,000. So don't expect any weight gain. And if you don't see any weight gain, you're not going to gain any significant amount of muscle. You could do a body recomp program. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But the general idea, if you want to see impressive amounts of muscle in a relatively short frame, meaning like 6-month blocks, you're going to have that caloric surplus, and you're going to have to see your weight gradually increasing, okay? And then once again, using that body fat percentage as a reference point, let's say you started at 10% and you want to make sure it increases, but not past like the 15% mark. I personally use the 15% mark as the cutoff. In fact, those pictures I posted yesterday, I believe my body fat percentage was around 14-ish% in that picture, So once again, 15% as the cutoff. I would personally never go above that, because then for sure you're going to start noticing, like Romeo mentioned, a huge belly, not maybe huge, but start noticing that belly accumulating, or a lot of men unfortunately get lower chest fat and it accumulates in that area right away. There are some things you can do in terms of help optimizing your hormonal balance to help your body not accumulate fat in those areas as easily. I'll talk a little bit about that as well later on. but 15% would be the cutoff. And because I find if you do go above 15% with most males, they start looking like fairly chubby, especially once they start approaching 20%, which is considered overweight for males, then for sure they start looking like very, very overweight. And then above 20%, it just accumulates even more. So clean eating is key. Like, look at the foods. I'm going to just really quick read what Daryl here wrote. I don't like counting. I just eat the good stuff mostly and cheat like once or twice a week, but I'm not aiming to bulk. Yeah, so you can do more kind of like what's referred to as intuitive eating for sure. I'm kind of trying to be more precise, right? Precision is key and hope also helps establish confidence, I find, with clients as well. Because if you have systems that give you predictable results, you have confidence that those systems will work. And I find with intuitive eating, just the predictability isn't there, but not to say there aren't people that look great and do have success on that. I just find the consistency to be a lot better when you have some kind of objective measurement tools to be able to track your progress with and kind of change your behaviors accordingly. So on my bulk, like for example, here's what I ate exactly. I ate mostly in terms of protein, grass-fed and grass-finished beef. That's AGA certified. Beef might actually be a really good food source for you to eat in a bulk because it's extremely calorically rich, with like a 1 pound steak being around 1,100 to 1,200 calories. Just a 1 pound steak, and it's extremely nutritious. So I would eat grass-fed, legitimate grass-fed and grass-finished beef, so the AGA certified. I would also eat like wild fish twice a week. So usually it's sockeye salmon or cod, or definitely once a week sockeye salmon for sure. And then whatever species of fish like I kind of liked at the grocery store that specific week when I was grocery shopping, right? Just to kind of mix it up. And then also lamb, grass-fed and grass-finished lamb, grass-fed and grass-finished bison. I did have chicken and turkey and also duck as well, but on the limited side. I mostly ate just like grass-fed species that are fed a species-specific diet, legitimate grass-fed and grass-finished, and also wild fish. So also I had deer, elk as well, and wild boar also. So those are my meat sources, right? And then for my carb sources, sprouted oats are great. Steel cut oats, I love steel cut oats as well. Fruit as well, organic fruit. I make sure in terms of the oats buy a company called, I think it's The One or One, but they do testing for glyphosate as well, and they're an organic brand. They sell it at Whole Foods and Sprouts, so I use them, and actually like extremely high in fiber as well, especially the sprouted oats. So it keeps you very regular, so that you're not all backed up and everything, which is always nice. And then I would eat a bunch of organic fruit, at least USDA organic or above, and drink pretty much just water, about a gallon of water from my Berkey water filter every single day. And water is huge too for muscle retention, right? Because your muscle is mostly water. It's about 70% water or so. And the more hydrated you are, the fuller and denser your muscle will look. But the more dehydrated you are, just the flatter your muscle will look as well. And you don't want to be trying to do a bulk without being adequately hydrated, because that's not going to give you that fuller, denser, muscular look as well. It's all about kind of like looking that way also because it helps motivate you once you see your body getting bigger and bigger and more muscular month to month, which could happen if you are on a proper program. Like you guys seen me post pictures here of guys in their 50s, 60s, and 70s still making great muscle progress even at that age. So if you're in your like 20s, 30s, and 40s, like you're not too old. Trust me, you can still make it happen with proper programming and just treating your body and mind with respect too, which a lot of people don't do these days by buying like a bunch of junk food, drinking alcohol, smoking vapes, staying out late all the time, working behind a computer 8 to 10 hours a day, stuff of this sort. So that's what I ate, okay? And in terms of supplements, like I would just have a protein shake, like a collagen protein shake, and probably like 5 to 10 grams of just basic creatine monohydrate. and that's it. Like, those are literally the only supplements I've used. In my opinion, if you just eat a well-sourced diet and you have a good digestive system, you don't need any supplements, almost any supplements, okay? Because you'll be getting all of the macro and micronutrients from all those food groups, like deer, grass-fed and grass-finished beef, grass-fed and grass-finished bison, organic vegetables for all the phytonutrients, organic fruit for all the phytonutrients and compounds there as well. Water, that's pretty much the most important nutrient in the world, period. Just make sure it's filtered for sure. I love my Berkey. You could also get a 5-stage reverse osmosis for your sink, and stuff of this sort. So don't think you need supplements. And in fact, until you've mastered like the basics consistently enough for many years, there's really no point of using supplements to overcome deficits. You need to be modeling because your face card never declines. You are the most beautiful human. Oh, thank you, Romeo. That means a lot, man. He wrote a long message here. So you are out of this world. Okay. So he wrote a very kind message. I kind of don't like self-flattery, but Romeo, thank you. That means a lot, hearing that. And I appreciate it, of course. So, okay. So another thing to consider in a lean bulk is how you structure your protein, fats, and carbs. That's huge, right? And this is the toughest one because at the end of the day, everyone is so different. You got to just determine what works for you by doing a bunch of trial and error over many years, which I've done. And that's why detailed note keeping is important. So you can see how your weight's changing, how your body appearance is changing, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can correlate that to your notes of how you're eating and then go like, hey, you know, when my fats are high, but my carbs are low, I'm kind of looking very skinny and depleted. But then when I balance those two out, I look much fuller and much healthier, especially in the face maybe, and stuff of that sort. Generally speaking, protein quantities, you want to be getting in somewhere around 0.8 to, on the high end, 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight on a bulk. And I found with just older clients, meaning clients like over 40 or 45, the higher end to produce better results, especially during a cut, but also good results during a bulk as well. Personally, I try to do like 1.2 per pound of body weight, whether I'm cutting or gaining. That just works for me. And also, like, I just like to eat more meat as well. It just tastes really good. And but you got to find out what works for you, right? Generally speaking, too, you don't want your fat to be too low for too long periods of time. There are no absolutes, and there's a time and place where you can go low fat as well, and maybe high carbs on certain days. But generally speaking, try to keep it around 30 to 35% of your total calories, right? And then the difference in carbohydrates. And definitely don't be afraid of carbohydrates, especially if, once again, you get your body fat down to a reasonable level before you start your bulk. Generally speaking, the only people that I feel should be worried about carbohydrates are people that are already just too overweight to begin with, because they already have maxed out their glycogen stores anyways. And the main thing is just carbohydrates are much easier to overeat as well. So keep that in consideration. Just depends on your situation though. Some other things you can possibly do to really help optimize your journey, especially since it's the end of the year, is I like to get a full male hormonal blood panel done like once a year. Okay. And also a GI map test. The hormonal panel will obviously give you a rundown of your hormones, right? And then the GI map test would give you good input, objective input on how well your digestive system is working. And if you also have any bacterial infection or fungal infection or any kind of issue with parasites, et cetera, because obviously you need a healthy digestive system to be able to intake all of that food. Because if you're eating a lot of food and it's causing digestive issues, you're not going to be able to keep doing that because it's just uncomfortable and oftentimes painful as well. So I would do that, get those two done as well if you want to optimize your results. I think the GI map test is around like $350, $385 or so. And then the full male blood panel, you could possibly get it done through your insurance, but typically it's around like a few $100 through like a TRT clinic. Now, with having said that, a lot of you guys might have fairly poor hormonal balance, right? Low testosterone, very high estrogen, and stuff of that sort. And you might be tempted to do steroids. But I've done many lives on how I keep my hormonal balance looking very good, even 39 years old already, and still have a total test of 900 nanograms per deciliter or higher sometimes. Okay, and just to give you an idea, they'll put you, if you do steroids at a TRT clinic, they'll put you at 800. Okay, and I'm able to stay at 900 just naturally, and most 20-year-olds are early 20-year-olds are below 600, to give you an opinion. Even I just finished with a client recently, Charlie, that I interviewed in this very group, and we took him to like 750 nanograms per deciliter, and he's in his mid-50s, and he had a lifetime testosterone, average testosterone around 200. So I'm telling you, if you're healthy and you live like a human being, your test will be very, very high naturally. The reason it's not is just most people live very unsustainably and kind of like normalized pathology over time. So now the third thing to consider when doing a proper muscle gain journey and not gaining too much fat is being on the correct workout program, right? And if you want to gain the most muscle, I've seen the best results with clients and me personally just being on like bodybuilding, more physique type of routines that will improve your body composition aesthetically a tremendous amount so you can look very good, which is pretty much all most people need from a visual perspective. It's like you really don't need to be deadlifting crazy amounts of weight or anything of that sort for what most people encounter functionally in the real world, right? But if you focus on building a great physique, most people can just enjoy that in a safe way every single day of the year, all year round. So I feel it really does have a huge boost in the quality of their life. I'm not saying it's going to solve all your problems, but imagine having like a very sexy and beautiful body. Of course, it's going to add a tremendous amount of value to your day and just make your life more enjoyable and your existence on this planet more enjoyable and stuff of that sort. So personally, like if I was trying to gain weight, I would stay away from like CrossFit, boot camps, stuff of that sort. And instead, I would double down on a really good, well-designed, periodized program that that I personally found good results with undulating periodization. So basically, you fluctuate between accumulation and intensification phases based on the person's specific goals and focus mainly on hypertrophy and maybe relative strength as well. But mainly those two areas and kind of cycles strategically back to back and focus on certain muscle groups that you feel you need help with. You need help in improving and catching up to the rest of your body, because with physique development too, it's not just putting on slabs of muscle on your physique. You got to do it artistically, and you have to know how to build a balanced and beautiful physique. Like I spent 8 months, close to 8 months, just really trying to catch up my shoulders, upper chest, and traps to my legs. So I had good balance between my upper and lower body. 8 months. So it didn't happen overnight. And once again, I was eating that 4,000 calories every single day, not eating out. I maybe during that 8 months went out like 2 times. And one of the times I just ate sushi, and the other time was just like a steak. So it wasn't even like alcohol, pizza, or anything of that sort. So I did that for 8 months straight on a really good program, consistent. No looking to the left, no looking to the right, no distractions. And that's just oftentimes what is going to take, because having a muscular physique is not natural, right? So you have to really push your physique over the top. And I'm not saying over the top with like 4, 5, 6 hour workouts. I was only working out about 60 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week on that 8-month bulk program. And that's it. And so if you're working out like 2 hours in the gym, 3 hours in the gym, what that tells me is you're probably economizing. So you are underloading your sets because, for example, you could either run fast or you can run long. You can't run long and fast, you know? So I would rather have more shorter but intense workouts, meaning like you're maybe leaving like 1 rep in the tank or close to 0 reps in the tank at the end of every set versus like, you know, leaving 3 to 4 reps in the tank at the end of every set, but doing way more sets. Now, there is a time and place for everything as well. So maybe in the beginning stage, especially if a person is unconditioned, leaving more reps in the tank would actually be very ideal and help prevent a tremendous amount of injury. But for someone like on the advanced side and has good conscious awareness of what their body can and can't do and the pain signals, then, you know, pushing the limits is going to be very important in really getting that muscle to pop, you know, especially if you're natural and doing this like completely steroid and hormone free, like I've been doing my whole entire life. So that's what I would do. So once again, I would stay away from CrossFit, stay away from boot camps, stay away from running. I did like no cardio, basically that whole entire bulk, and stay away from body weight exercise. I'm not saying those forms of exercise are bad. They're just not going to optimize your muscle gain. And I would say for the average person too, I would stay away from like powerlifting and Olympic lifting as well. Once again, you need that deep mind-muscle connection, good mind, close to muscle isolation, etc., without also imposing a tremendous amount of risk on your body, which could easily happen with very heavy deadlifts or back squats. Once again, nothing wrong with those lifts. Oftentimes it's how you do it instead of what you do, etc., but just the average state of health of the average person and the amount of biomechanical issues they have, as well as digestive issues and health issues. They would need a tremendous amount of coaching and a lot of groundwork first before they expose themselves to intense deadlift and back squat workouts without getting injured. Now, having said that, during my bulk, I did no back squats, no deadlifts. My legs were huge, and I've gained a lot of muscle in my upper body. In fact, found that I actually recovered a lot more and a lot better as well, excluding those lifts. And sure, you got to do maybe 1 or 2 more lifts, etc., but I actually found that I was able to build a also much better looking physique because my hips in particular, kind of like my obliques didn't expand as much too, which you got to be careful with, like a lot of standing overhead presses and stuff of that sort, because then it makes your torso look very blocky, where I'm trying to establish more of like an X-frame physique. So like wide shoulders, narrow waist, and medium width hips. Everyone's goals are different though. So yeah, and we talked about intensity. I think that's another big thing as well. Just a lot of people just don't have the appropriate amount of intensity and drive and push in their character to be able to incentivize muscle growth. That's another big limiting factor for a lot of people too. So once again, I try to always leave maybe 1 rep in the tank, maybe none on certain sets and stuff of that sort. And that's the kind of push and drive that's required to really push your body over the limit in order for you to continuously keep gaining muscle and keep looking more dense and have the muscle look more fuller. Because if you just kind of go through the motions and your body's not really going to change and stuff of that sort, okay? Another thing that I found worked super well for me is to have like a really deep mind-muscle connection with any particular muscle group in any particular lift instead of just moving the weight back and forth. So you guys can see from a bunch of my videos, maybe not every single lift, but a lot of them, the tempo is very slow and I'm very hyper focused on feeling it in the muscle I'm specifically trying to target. So if you are doing a bench press, it's your chest that should be giving out, and it's your chest that should be feeling all of the work the entire time, from the first rep to the very last rep until you re-rack the bar or the dumbbells, not your shoulders, not your triceps. And little stuff which requires a lot of coaching, even like for the chest, like your elbow positioning, you know, like for example, I'm going to move over here. Your elbow shouldn't be out when you're bench pressing here. That's just going to put a lot of strain on that poor anterior delt, especially with the way the bench press is set up, right? Because the bench press is stopping your shoulder movement from moving your shoulder complex from moving freely. And the way you're positioned, let's say we're at a flat bench, there's a lot of shear pressure going down on that poor anterior delt when your elbows are flared out. So little cues that you learn over time or through good coaching is like for the chest. I imagine like bringing my shoulders down, bring my shoulders way back, kind of like imagine like a bow arched around the bench and keeping it that way the entire time. And then as you're pressing, your elbows aren't way out here. They're actually down here. You got to find, everyone's a little different. So you might need to go a little closer. You might need to go a little bit higher. But your elbows are definitely not way up here. And as you're pressing, your shoulders are down and back the entire time. You're kind of hugging the bench. Hugging the bench. That's so important. And as you press out, you're kind of even turning in pressing motions into a wide fly type motion, right? Instead of pushing straight up and down, okay? Which is mainly just working, once again, the shoulder and the tricep for the most part. So you want to turn that pressing motion into more of like a wide fly motion with all those other cues and having a deep mind muscle connection. But you want to find these good angles for like every single muscle group. That's so important because I guarantee you, I'm not doing any special exercise. I have all the same machines accessible to me and free weights as you do, you know? But it's not how you do things. It's not like what you do. It's how you do it. And these little teeny details are so important. And unfortunately, the only way you're probably going to learn about it is if you fully devote yourself to that lifestyle or you hire a good, competent coach to give you these cues and show you what to do, because it's tough to just discover it yourself by winging it. You know, it's just how it is. So, okay. Now, the fourth thing that a lot of people miss in a lean bulk too is recovery. And this one's going to be probably the toughest part for most of you, to be honest, because recovery is king when it comes to gaining muscle. Not only optimizing your health, but especially gaining muscle. And if you aren't able to optimize your recovery, I really don't care how hard you're going to train at the gym or how much food you're going to eat, or what gym you have accessible to you. You're not going to gain any impressive amount of muscle. Even if you somehow manage to gain a few pounds, you're not going to be able to hold on to it as well. So you'll lose it very quickly. So recovery is king. So some things to consider for recovery. I mean, this is a whole multiple hour conversation here. You better be sleeping 8 hours a day, an honest 8 hours a day, every single day on a lean bulk if you want it to happen properly. And also you don't want to get injured, because inevitably as you're doing a lean bulk, the amount of weight you can lift will increase quite a bit because you're eating a lot more, right? And ideally you want to be progressively overloading too on your lifts. And the more you lift, the more dangerous things become. And if you're not well rested, especially if you're not sleeping like 8 hours a day and preferably taking midday naps as well, that chance of injury is going to be very high. You're going to have tweaks, and just a little neck pull or a little shoulder pull can set you back multiple months. Moreover, like a serious injury can set you back even longer than that. So you better be sleeping 8 to 10 hours a day for sure, minimum, if you want any chance. Some other little things that can help is maybe on Wednesday, if you have like a jacuzzi at home or you have a bathtub at home or in your complex or whatever, I like to take like a 45-minute hot bath with some organic teas on Wednesday to help reboot for the second half of the week. And then also on Sunday to reboot for the first half of the week. So that way you're kind of coming in fresh all the time, midweeks. Also, like generally speaking with my programming, I take a day off after leg days all the time. So like if I were to train legs on Tuesday, I wouldn't work out at all on Wednesday. Stuff of that sort. If I train legs on Saturday, which I did today, I wouldn't work out on Sunday. That way, because training legs is going to be pretty intensive on the central nervous system, and you got to be careful, especially with how people are living these days. The central nervous system is already on the brink of collapse, right? People are just running on exhaustion, fatigue, and stress. So that's basically not going to be conducive to allow you to put on any decent amount of muscle. So even if you're on the right program, but you're maxed out on your stress, you hate your job, Your coworkers or your boss are causing you a lot of stress. You're drinking a lot of coffee and stimulants. You're not sleeping well. Well, I don't care what kind of program you're on then. Just the muscle gain is not going to happen because A, you're super mentally distracted when living like that and you become very myopic. It's even tough to focus in the gym, but also you're just exhausted. Your HPA regulation is all off. Your adrenals are probably at this point, late stage in the game, not even producing cortisol. I'm kind of exaggerating there a little bit. So you feel like a zombie all day and you basically need, 10 cups of coffee to get through the day and you're still tired and stuff of that sort. So that's going to be huge. For me personally, I found like working 2 days a week huge. Working remotely to be another huge upgrade. I would say if you can, and if it's your thing, think about it. Working remote can, if you allocate the time difference to rest and recovery and your mental health, can be a huge lifesaver for most, because all of a sudden you have like 1 to 2 hours of free time every single day. Let's say 2 hours, 5 days a week, that's 10 hours of free time. All you need is roughly about 10 hours a week to optimize your physical and mental health and your aesthetics, okay? So just right there, from not having to drive to work and back, you have the time difference to look your best, to feel your best, plus go to work, plus be super rested and stuff of that sort. Also maybe distance yourself from that super annoying coworker and stuff of that sort, or whatever. It all factors into your recovery equation. It's not all about just going to the gym, drinking an energy drink, and then lifting weights hard, probably pushing your body past the limit of where you could go. Because remember, workouts take energy. They don't give you energy. So if you don't have the energy to begin with, the working out you're doing is just running you deeper into the ground. And of course, that's unsustainable. And you're not going to have good results. You're not. And you're going to be worn down. Plus, your chance of injury is going to increase through the roof. Romeo is asking, so if you do legs on Monday, is it bad to do upper body on Tuesday? I'll do the reverse. I'll do upper body on Monday and legs on Tuesday and then off on Wednesday. I would recommend, just as a general rule, always take off after leg days. Always. It makes a huge difference, and you'll notice even, there are a bunch of variables that go into this, of course, but even your muscle density will improve, because you guys will notice if you're really well rested, not only, does your face look better, but also the muscle density looks much fuller as well. When you're very tired and depleted, the muscle kind of looks droopy, like very beat down and flat and stuff of this sort. Again, many variables that go into that, but just generally speaking. So, yeah, those are recoveries, but remember, optimizing recovery is huge. So one thing you guys can do is take a piece of paper out and write down all of your from the external world first, all of your micro and macro stresses, and see your total stress load. And then figure out a way to limit that, because the body does not recover well when it's bombarded with small stresses and macro stresses all at the same time. In fact, that's a disaster. So if you are stressed out at work, stressed out at home, et cetera, driving to work, stressed out on the freeway, plus taking a bunch of stimulants, plus you have since we mentioned it earlier in this call, like a nagging internal critic that's relentless, it's not your results aren't gonna be that good unless you lower that stress load. That's so important, not only to improve the quality of your life, but also to help you with building that aesthetically appealing physique and putting on muscle, and then being able to hold on to that muscle as well. That's another thing. So I hope that helps. There's so much more we can cover, but I think those are the big players. And if you honestly just master those players, that's really all it takes to do a proper lean bulk and do it right. Inevitably, you will gain a little bit of body fat. I don't think you're going to stay shredded and just gain muscle. That's not going to happen. You will gain a little bit of body fat, but I would cap it at 15% if it were me personally, and just don't go above that. And also cap your weight gain at about 2 pounds per month. Safe bet. No absolutes though, right? Case by case basis, but general rules that I follow that have worked super well for me. Okay, so good to see everyone. Hope everyone is going to have a great weekend. I didn't catch Napoleon last week, but I might try to go catch it this week. Looks pretty good. So, okay, wishing you guys the best. Take care.